Hello and welcome to the Student Robotics 2021 Virtual Kickstart. We are live, we are back, and we are here for our 2021 competition year, kicking things off as we normally do with our Kickstart event. And this year, to help me kick it off, I'm joined by my less than glamorous assistant, Mr. Alistair Lynn.
How rude, Mr. Jake. You bring me on as a hype man and then insult me.
Yes, but did you expect anything less? All
no,
about
this is
consistency.
exactly what I expected.
Exactly.
Soulless bastard.
It's alright, I'm Ginger.
Right. What have we got to talk about, Mr. Jake?
So, over the next half hour or so, we're going to go through what Student Robotics is. You may know this by now, you may not, but we're going to tell you it anyway. We're going to tell you what the schedule for this year looks like, or competition year specifically. We're going to go through what the simulator is. We're going to go through how to create your robot. We're going to go through the game for this year, which is probably why most of you are here. And then we're going to go through what the rest of today looks like, because it's not actually just a presentation. Of course, throughout this presentation, if you have any questions on anything, please post them in the chat, and our very talented blue shirts will curate them together and throw them in my general direction. So, what is Student Robotics? Well, Student Robotics is a UK-based charity to bring the excitement of engineering and the challenge of coding to young people through robotics. Or at least that's what the website says. Really, what this ends up being is we help young people from the ages of 16 to 19 build autonomous robots to compete in an annual competition. This annual competition being entirely run by volunteers. Student Robotics is a charity and we are entirely run by volunteers. Us volunteers give our free time to make this work. There's quite a few of us. We're all in our own homes this time, but that's fine, we're all still talented. We may be nerds, but we aren't scary. We don't bite, or at least most of us don't. And we are here to help you. That's why we do this. We enjoy sort of teaching people and giving people the experiences that lead them into a sort of STEM career path. So, naturally, a competition with just volunteers and no teams would be really kind of dull. So there are teams. It says there are N of you, because I forgot to change the slide. There are in fact 21 of you, forming a total of 31 teams. I can hear you laughing there, Alistair. And normally these teams are mostly from the UK, but we've got some nice spread out ones this year. We've got a team from Wales, we have a team from Germany, we have two new teams as well from outside the UK, one from Paris, or just outside Paris, and one from down under in Adelaide, South Australia, which you can tell because their map is upside down, as Australia is.
Bet they've never heard that one before.
No, as you know, I'm a very comedic person, very original. So, as I've said several times, today is Kickstart. Rather, obviously. And very soon-ish, it'll be Christmas. But it's not so soon that we need to be talking about it. We can pretend that's a long way away. Shortly after Christmas, we're going to be running what are known as league sessions. And these are brand new for this year. And I'm going to get on to exactly what those are in a second. But it basically comes down to you can't leave everything until the end of March and hope everything works. You've got to start soon. After the league sessions is when these holidays are, and shortly after that, on May the 1st, we will be having our competition. And yes, that means that for the first time in SR's history, we're announcing the date of the competition at Kickstart, which is awesome. So, starting today, you have around 6 months to do quite a lot. Now, it's not actually 6 months. Really, it's exactly 161 days, or as Alistair would like to have it said, 14 million seconds.
I would have said 14 megaseconds, but I'll take it.
Good enough. So, in 6 months, you'll need to get your robot moving. You'll need to do some things where things are generally defined by the rules. Won't be an interesting game otherwise. You'll be able to meet other robots, virtually at least. You'll need to compete some more, and then compete more, score some points, because otherwise games are a bit, pointless if you don't score points. Pause for laughter. Of course, you'll need to win some prizes, or laughter, exasperative sounds, close enough. Of course, the main reason we're all here is to have fun, or socially distant fun, at the very least. Now, the competition itself is split into two parts, the league and the knockouts. The league seeding your position into the knockouts. The league is ranked based on points that you get from where you position in a match. So the person in first gets more points than second, third and fourth, etc. This league table then seeds the positions into the knockouts. Now what we can see here is the knockout table for the 2020 virtual competition. And as we can see, there are usually 4 robot matches, and of those, 2 robots progress down lower into each level before, in the finals, we were left with just 4 robots. The league, generally, we put immediately before the knockouts, generally on Saturday morning, so it's Saturday and Sunday morning. This year, we're doing things very differently. This year, as I alluded to before, we're running multiple league sessions. These will function in the same way as the league, just spread out on multiple days, and they do count for just as much. They're all weighted the same, and they all seed your position into the knockouts, which will be happening on the 1st. Now, these are the dates for our league sessions. They'll be put on our website very shortly. Kickstart, obviously, today being the 21st, the competition being the 1st of May, and league sessions 1 through 4 being January, February, March, and April, spread out-ish. These league sessions will take a very similar format to today. There will be live stream sessions on YouTube. The matches will be pre-recorded, but the commentary will be live, so you get our perfect reactions. And you'll need to submit things beforehand, and there's a whole rigmarole around that, but we'll get into the details as we get closer to the time. Now, here's some recommended steps. You don't need to listen to these necessarily. I can't tell you much what to do, but many people here at Student Robotics, we've been doing this a long time, and we do mostly know what we're talking about. Now, there's some things to keep in mind when you're thinking about designing what your robot might do. You'll want to think about how your robot's going to move in terms of the game strategy. What's it going to do first? What's it going to do second? What order of things? Priority of things? Things like that. You're also going to want to think about sensors. Your robot is equipped with a number of sensors, which I'll get onto in a second. You want to think, which ones do you want to use? Which ones don't you want to use? Which ones have you never heard of before and want to try for the hell of it? There's lots. Iterate. This is very important. Make small improvements and just make sure it keeps working. We just keep building things and breaking onto it. Just keep trying new things. See what works. Trying not to break things, obviously. And of course, as is the case with many things, lots and lots of testing. Without testing, there's no guarantee that it will actually be able to perform when it needs to. Now, as I said, us volunteers, we do know what we're doing. And there are a couple of places where you may need some help. Now, the best place to get this is obviously volunteers. Most of us, at least, are ex-competitors. There are many ways to get in touch with us, whether it be our new Discord server, whether it be email, whether it be reading the documentation we've written, things like that. We may also be running Tech Days, which are a sort of day-long hacking session full of volunteers where we can give you advice on things, you can ask us questions, and we're all there to help each other and get along with things. We're still working out what these are going to look like in a COVID-safe environment, but if and when we run them, we will of course let your team leaders know. Discord. This year, we have a Discord. I'll get more into that in a second. Bus factor. Now, it's very important when you're building a robot to share the knowledge. Make sure that many people know how the code and how the strategy of it works. If one person gets hit by a bus, then you'd hope that your robot won't stop. Obviously, there's more important things if one of your teammates gets hit by a bus, but, you know, robots are still pretty important. Keep things simple. Simple ideas do often do the best. We've seen some incredibly simple robots do incredibly well, and we've seen some incredibly complicated robots, whilst they look incredible, not do very well at all. Sometimes the simplest strategies can perform the best. Don't overcomplicate things just for the sake of it. And of course, I'm going to stress this again, test things out. Just keep testing things. And fortunately, because it's a simulator, you have a nice short feedback loop. You can make a change, hit reload, and it works. Unlike the real world, you actually have an undo button, which is quite handy. It's at this point in the presentation I'd normally talk about what kit you're using, but in this case, we don't really have a kit. Instead, we have a simulator, and this simulator is not quite like the Matrix, but it's still reasonably impressive. It's not actually the Matrix unless we're living in the Matrix, but that's a separate, longer discussion.
Deep. Very deep.
Why won't this skip? There we go. This is in fact what our simulator looks like. This is some footage from the finals of the 2020 virtual competition. The objective of this game was to collect tokens and bring them back to your scoring zone without mixing the colours. And as we can see here, it's a 4-robot match, all 4 robots moving around, doing their own things, and generally at least trying to score some points or whatever's happening in that top right-hand corner. Now, your robot. This is the thing you'll be competing with. This is what your robot looks like. It comes in 4 flavours, although this year it's a 2-robot match, but we'll get onto that in a second. This is what your robot looks like. Now, the robot is equipped with quite a few things. It's got distance sensors, sort of like ultrasound. It's got a radar system, which is very interesting, which we'll get onto as well in a second. It's got bump sensors like micro switches, and it's got LEDs, which don't really have any sensing purpose. They just look kind of cool. Now, the distance sensors are these blue squares. You can see 2 on the front, 2 on the side, 2 on the back. And the bump sensors or micro switches are the red bars, which are just on the front and backs of the robot. Everyone in this year does have the same robot chassis, but there's still plenty of chances to be unique. Now, as an engineer, the code is the bit that I care about the most, and this is the way you'll actually control your robot. This year, it's going to be Python, specifically Python 3.7, which is quite nice. For this, the simulator, it runs locally, so all your development will be done locally on your own machines in an environment you feel most comfortable with. This is great because you can use your own editors, your own tooling, but it also means versioning is up to you. This is very important. If you delete a version, if you copy over it, if your computer gets hit by a bus, we have no way of recovering this. It's up to you to help version your code, do exactly what you need to. We can, of course, provide some advice on some good ways of collaborating and versioning, things like that, and you can, of course, ask us in Discord and we can help you out with things like that. Because it's a simulator, you might also want to test multiple strategies or have multiple robots and see sort of what they do and what they interact. So in our simulator, you can assign your code to either one of the robots and assign other code to other robots so you can control them, see what they look like, see how they interact, and just generally have some more fun. You'll obviously only be able to enter 1 program per team, but you can still test out as much as you want. Now, there's far too much actual information for me to even try and cover in this presentation. So the biggest piece of advice I can possibly give you is read the docs. Just read the docs. They're incredibly useful. There's a lot of time, information, and knowledge put into them, and they're there for a reason. They're not just there to look pretty and make it look like we do things. And of course, this year, the documentation can be found at studentrobotics.org/docs, and there's a link to that in the video description. Now, this year, Student Robotics, we're moving full on into the 21st century. The forum is no more for this year, at least. We're on Discord now. And with this, you can communicate with much the same people as you could before. There are anyone doing Student Robotics. There's blue shirts, there's team leaders, other competitors from either your team or other teams or anything. And the main intention there is for you to be able to, communicate. You can get support from people, you can share tricks and tips and chat with your teammates, and of course just brag about how your team are doing. Team leaders will have all the sign-up information. You emailed it late last week, so if you don't have access, go talk to them. We have almost 100 people in our Discord now, which is incredible, and it seems nearly half of them are from HRS, which is strange. So, what does a competition actually look like? It's all well and good talking about things and showing things, but it's not quite the same thing. So, what this is normally at a Kickstart event, we would show the dramatic tiebreaker from the 2013 competition. We're not going to do that this year. As it's a virtual competition, we have instead, fortunately, a virtual tiebreaker. Now, this tiebreaker was from the 2020 competition, and the tiebreaker happens when in the final match of the knockouts, there is a draw. So what we do is we rerun the final with the same robots, same code, same everything, and see how they perform. We've not run a tiebreaker since 2020, since that original 2013 one. They're incredibly rare. So, let's see what it looks like.
3, 2, 1, and off we kick.
Yeah, indeed. We may see some very similar results from this match because all robots are running the exact same code in the exact same simulator, running on the exact same machine. Physics and determinism.
It's not deterministic.
It's not deterministic at all. So we can see there in the bottom left, Jam Dynamics and Lawrence Sheriff, and now Kenilworth grabbing 2 tokens, grabbing 1 token even. Jam Dynamics taking the silver route, and LSS and KSF taking the gold token approach. HRS2 there now also grabbing a silver, although Jam Dynamics may have something to say about that. Are they going to successfully take a steal? The token nicely lined up, right in front of them, almost ripe for the picking.
That appears to be a steal going on the top left there.
That is a successful steal. Jam Dynamics stealing the token from Hills Road number 2, giving it to themselves, putting Hills Road down to just a single point and moving Jam Dynamics from 4 up to 7. Wow, my mental math sucks.
My blood pressure cannot take this.
Oh, you're getting old, my friend. And fortunately, HRS2, they're realizing that silver token is gone, and they've successfully replaced it with another silver token.
They make up for it. Now, what are Kenilworth going to be up to? They're poisoned. No, they're not poisoned. Not quite. Unless they accidentally poison themselves in this tussle. No, over Kenilworth go. But it looks like that gold token is over the line.
That does indeed. That's a very impressive and interesting looking interaction between those robots. Jam Dynamics now bringing that silver token. They've placed it on the line, but that does count as in that scoring zone down there. HRS2 look like they may be going to steal their token back.
They want that steal now. If Hills Road can get that token back, that will tie them up.
It looks like they have almost lined up to it. If they can just scooch it across the left-hand side of our arena wall there, it looks like there's a LSS in the way. But they may just be able to successfully double steal, which would be the first one we've seen. There's only 10 seconds left. Oh, and Jam Dynamics grabbing that silver token. That is no lot. Oh,
no, they drop it. No,
they drop it.
Get it out of there. Get it
Tokens.
out of there.
Oh, that's I can't tell what that is from here.
I can't tell if that's off the ground. I cannot tell if that token is off the ground, because if it's off the
Not
ground,
only, not only
come
could it
down
also
to
be not on the ground, it could also not quite be over that dotted line.
well,
This, I can safely say, has been one of the most dramatic finals of any student robotics competition I have ever seen.
good God, that's almost tying it for the famous one. The famous tiebreaker, which was, and this is the first tiebreaker since that famous tiebreaker of 2013. Oh, where MAI pulled off that dramatic last few seconds win. Is this the one we're going to be telling everyone about from now onwards? We got an instant replay coming up of that stealing action. Now in we go. Oh, that is off the ground. It is. That is not on the ground, Jake. That is in the air. That is not in contact with the floor in that corner. Therefore, does not count. Let us talk then about this year's game, which I'm sure you're all dying to find out what it is. Well, we've had some allusions to exactly what might be in it so far, so it is time for the grand reveal. The game this year is called Radars of the Lost Ark. This is a game of territorial control. It is played between two robots, 1v1. The robot in the pink corner and the robot in the yellow corner. The goal of this game is to capture the most territories. You win by having the greatest number of territories captured at any one time. Of course, you can claim the unclaimed ones at the start in grey, but it also pays off very much to go and claim the territories that your opponent has wandered into. You will note in the center of each territory, which is the grey areas on the floor of the arena there, are a orange circular tube. These ostensibly are the towers. They are radio towers. They serve two purposes. Firstly, they are your means of capturing territory. The way you capture a territory is that your robot drives into a territory, broadcasts its own name very loudly, following the Daenerys Targaryen school of diplomacy, and waits for about 2 seconds, and the territory will then turn your color. They also serve dual purpose as the means of navigation. The towers will broadcast their station codes, and you can then use that to track towards them based on the angle and potentially the signal strength for a rough idea of how far away they are. So the big challenge this year is, can you navigate around this arena correctly? Can you take territories? Can you take your opponent's territories? And can you do it in the 120 seconds provided per match? This is the first module of the game. Now see, the way that we're running things this year is, as Jake mentioned earlier, there are going to be 4 league sessions. This is the game as we will be playing it in the first league. Following the first league, we have some surprises for you. The game will become incrementally just a little bit more interesting and complicated, and you will have to adapt as you go. There'll be 4 modules in total, and the 4th one will be as played in the final. We're not going to reveal to you the details of the later modules yet. This is just the first module. I will happily take questions about this game, because no doubt you have a better idea of what is missing from my speech than I do. So let's see. What is the first question? Got the question as to versioning, whether you might want to use Git. The answer is yeah. Git is a very good way of handling different versions of your software if you're comfortable with it. Or if you want to learn Git, it's very good. We're not going to be prescriptive. You don't have to use it. There are lots of different ways of doing versioning, but if your team wants to use Git, then go for it. Anybody else? Chuck your questions and or Twitch spam into chat.
While we're waiting for some more questions, Alistair, should we go through what the prizes for this year are?
Sure. All right. Grand prizes. So, the big prizes, fairly obviously, are the first, second, and third place. We'll go through the boring details of the exactly how all the competition works later, but we are going to go through the leagues and then to a grand knockout, and that will decide the first, second, and third place overall, and they will receive the grand gold, silver, and bronze prizes. As well as the big three, we have the Rookie Award. This is for teams who are competing for the first time in Student Robotics, and that will be given to whichever of the rookie teams, the teams who are competing for the first time, scores highest in the league. We've also got the Online Presence Award. We very much want you to be active and engaged on social media, blogging, if that's a thing that Generation Z does. I'm far too old for this sort of thing. All of the Twitters, all of the above, YouTube content, if you're feeling up to it, and whoever is marketing themselves the best will receive the coveted Online Presence Award. And then finally, we have the Mighty Committee Award. The Committee Award will be judged by us based on the engineering. It'll be given to what we consider the best engineered robot. Now, that's not the most complicated. In fact, simplicity is very much a virtue. This will be given to a team who comes up with the smartest ideas, the simplest, the neatest tricks, the most solidly engineered robot, the robot that really makes us smile. Let us cover some of these questions now. In what format are the tower codes transmitted? You'll be able to receive them from an API. We'll have documentation up. The tower codes are 2-letter codes, like it's 1925, and the mapping of which codes of which towers are in the rules.
The next question being, can we make iterations between league matches? Unfortunately, you cannot. You cannot make modifications between league matches, but you can make modifications between league sessions. Each session being on separate days, you'll submit your code slightly before the league session is due to go live. We'll then run your simulations, get them recorded, and then stream them, which means up until that point you submit, you can make as many changes as you want, but after that point, you're stuck. When it comes to the next one, you can spend whatever it is, 5 weeks making as many changes as you want. You could rewrite it if you wanted, but please don't. Submit again, compete again, change again, right up until the competition.
And of course, it'll be a different module for the later leagues.
It will indeed.
Different version of the game. Can we win the prize for most ugly robots? Well, you may notice that the robots will all be looking suspiciously similar. We're hoping to have some customization options later, but we'll talk about that when we have something ready. There will not be a prize for the most ugly robot, but you can feel the satisfaction of having us insult its looks on the commentary if you really want.
I will take great pleasure in doing that.
You're so cruel.
I am indeed. So There's a very interesting question here, which is how many HRS teams are there going to be? Now, for those who aren't in our Discord yet, quite a few of the competitors that have been joining are HRS team members, to the point that we actually hit 44% of all competitors in the Discord at one point were from HRS, which is incredible. What I can tell you is, to actually answer the question rather than talk about it, HRS have entered 4 teams from their school, which I realise is a slightly boring answer and probably not what you were after, but that's the answer.
They got a lot of people. Do we get points for most robot spins in a game? Good question. No. Spinning, unfortunately, Mr. Skywalker, is not a good trick. I suppose you could use that to do a sort of slightly more analog radar sweep. Really get into the like cosplaying a radar dish thing. But it's probably more beneficial to try and actually drive around. You'll get the relative bearing to any of the stations. So the easiest way to do navigation is essentially just to try and keep the relative bearing at 0 and just track directly to the station. You don't need to spin around that much. For those of you who have competed before, you may be used to our old vision system, which is not going to be available in this game. The radar system gives you slightly less information than the vision system. There's also more radar stations, though, and it's probably easier to track directly to them. A little more complicated if you want to do localization and figure out exactly where you are in the arena, but it's a solvable problem if you want to do that, and I'll leave that to you.
Yeah, we do like giving our competitors a little bit of a challenge.
You can solve it if you've done a bit of you've done your GCSE trig.
Yeah. We have a question here called, can you organise a friendly match Discord channel? That's an interesting one.
That's a very interesting idea.
Generally, when it comes to turning up to the competition, we run what's known as Tinker Time, which gives teams a chance to run in our actual arena, which, given that it's a simulated one and it's the one you're running is the one we're running, that's less useful. We'd never considered the idea of having either friendly matches or actually trying against other people's code.
That's
it's an interesting idea.
Not gonna lie, I absolutely love this idea.
Yeah, I quite like it too.
We hadn't thought of it, but we'll see.
We hadn't. Sort something out. And that goes to show we don't think of everything. Leave it with us, and we'll think on it. We'll stew on it, and we'll publicise some information if and when it comes to doing it.
How does the radar system work? Okay, so the radar system, you can call a function in the API, and you will get a list of radar targets, but secondary radar, which will be the towers in the center of the territories. I think you can listen to a pretty large range of them at the same time. I don't think it's the whole arena, but you'll be able to pick up lots of towers, lots of radar returns at the same time, and you'll get back a list of targets for the towers that you can see. It's secondary radar rather than primary radar, so it's not sending out a ping and getting a response back. It is just receiving the signal and doing like VDF. That'll be all covered in the documentation. Hopefully you'll get a kind of feel for it today as part of the microgames.
We have another question here, which is clearly from someone who competed in the 2020 virtual competition. Are there awards for robots that jump the highest or destroy the most due to the physics engine? Now, there was a feature of the 2020 simulator which did involve robots being yeeted out of the arena. In theory, for this competition, I'm very sorry to say, we think we've fixed it. Now, that is not an invitation to try, and I can safely tell you, no, there will not be an award for it. But what we can tell you is it should, in theory, be happening significantly less frequently, if at all.
Boringly, but usefully. We think we've worked out most of the tricky stuff. There was a bunch of stuff about like the weight of the robot was massively high and that sort of thing. Oh, no doubt it'll still happen at some point because physics simulation is very difficult.
Physics is hard.
Yeah, just ask Valve. But hopefully we've minimised the yeeting, and so there won't be an award. Are the radio stations that we get the info for only the ones that we've claimed? No, you'll be able to see all the transmitters that you have in range through your radar system, and you'll be able to find out which ones they are, whether and who currently owns them, or if they're unclaimed. So you'll be able to understand what state they're in as well as where they are. You need to actually be in the territory to capture them, but you can see them from a fair way away, and they'll just broadcast to everyone.
Now, we have a question here on, will there be a way to give code to enemy robots to test your code against other code? Yes, there will be. Yes, there is documentation on the simulator page for saying which robot has which bits of code, and so you can give either robot either bit of code you want. That means you could use the simulator for testing extra strategies, you could have something to test extra collision bits or timing or things like that. You can use it for really whatever reason you want, but yes, there specifically is a way to say, I want to be that robot and I want this code to be that robot, and have it just work. This is all in the documentation. Give it a read, there's some great bits in there.
These are good questions.
They are.
Yeah, they are. How do you claim a tower from the other team? Same way you claim it if it's unclaimed. You go into the zone, you call the magic method, which transmits a "Hi, please be me" code, and takes about 2 seconds, and then you claim it. As long as you're inside the territory, when you call this thing, 2 seconds later, the territory will turn to be yours, whether it was claimed by the other team or whether it was unclaimed.
Okay, there's clearly some very interesting people in our chat, because the next question up is it allowed to yeet the enemy out of the arena? So this brings up in one case, this question is completely ridiculous, but it does bring up a slight edge case. No, you may not do this. It is against the rules. Student Robotics is a non-contact sport, and so it is not allowed to intentionally attempt to damage other robots. We do reserve the right to both audit your code and your strategy and disqualify you if we think this is happening. If it happens accidentally, and we can't prove it was intentional, that's one thing. You won't be penalised if it's obviously accidental, but if it is intentional, then we'll probably do things about it. And yeah, it basically falls down to, there's a nice big clause in the rules, which is, please have good sporting conduct.
So think about it a bit like, say, chess. If you do unconventional strategies in chess, that is great. If you trick your opponent into thinking you're doing something you're not, that's great. If you stand up from the chessboard and Hadouken your opponent off the stage, it's considered somewhat outside of the bounds of
Sport.
How is good sporting conduct. So yes, please don't keep the yeeting to a minimum. Obviously robots are going to hit each other from time to time. That's just the nature of the game. Collision avoidance is hard, although it's actually easier this year than previous years. But yes, please don't. This is not Robot Wars. Please don't go full. I was going to say Chaos 2, but I think that's a really, really old reference now. I'm showing my age.
Yes, you are. Yes. So if you accidentally yeet a robot, you're probably fine, but please don't try. Yeah. And also, please try not to accidentally yeet robots.
Bumps and scrapes are inevitable. Collision avoidance is a good idea for you anyway, because if you hit someone else, the chances are you might get knocked back as well. If you accidentally bump something, it's not a big deal. That happens all the time. Is there a way to get a voice channel for our teams? Yes. Not yet, but this is something we're working out how to do.
Yeah, there is a message in. So what you need to do to get this, if you want it, because it's opt-in only, you'll need to get your team leader to message us in the team leader only channel, and if they say yes, there's a little bit of agreement they need to do, and then we can give you a normal voice channel. There are some caveats around it, which is why we need the team leader to explicitly sign off on it. So if you want a voice channel, tell your team leader to tell us by proxy.
Will there ever be robot wars in student robotics? Probably not. Certainly not the physical competition, because the kit is quite expensive.
As are human lives.
But also we try to be more constructive, more like a typical sport, really. Robot Wars is entertaining, if a little dangerous, which is why it's no longer broadcast. But very much the focus in student robotics is on more the intelligence side, which is why we're all autonomous rather than remote control. And that's probably why we're not going to see anything BattleBotsy or Robot Warsy in student robotics. I know there have been some teams who've competed in both in the past, and there are a couple of blue shirts who've done Robot Wars or the local Robot Wars roadshows at times, and it is cool, but it's not likely to be coming to student robotics anytime soon.
Unfortunately. Now,
they're different things.
They are, yes. There's a question here on, can you tell where the other robot is when they are capturing? The simple answer to this is yes, but actually no. The way you in fact do this is you can't ping a radar and go, where's the person capturing you if someone is capturing you. That's not how it works. What you can do is just find where a robot is, or specifically find where this thing is. You've got micro switches and bump sensors, you've got ultrasound, and with those you might be able to tell if something is robot shaped, but you'll be able to tell there's something there. And in theory, the only thing inside a territory is either the tower or another robot, and you might be able to use that to your advantage. A robot can't track the other robot. That's a little bit too OP.
At least not in this module.
That.
But we're not going to drop any hints about what may or may not be in future modules. Will the rules on the website be updated after this live stream, as the 2020 rules are still on the main rules page? Yes, they will. We waited until after the live stream to release it so that we didn't give anyone a head start.
Yeah, we do. We are very dramatic people, and so we like to build some tension, build some drama, and have a dramatic reveal. But
also we don't want to give a massive advantage to the people who are watching our GitHub repos.
Yes, also that. Yes, whilst there's only Alistair and I on this live stream, there are a number of people behind the scenes doing the finishing touches, getting the rules prepared, getting them on the website. So they will be up soon. You can monitor our Discord and our Twitter for when the rules will actually be released. The next question is one which pains me a little bit, which is, when will you go back to using the physical kit in a physical competition in future, if possible? We'd quite like to. Unfortunately, this year, it's not our choosing to run a virtual competition. There's this unfortunate global pandemic, which makes running in-person competitions
surely not
a little more interesting. So for the safety of both competitors, volunteers, spectators, team leaders, and anyone else involved, we made the executive decision back in somewhen to have a virtual only competition this year. We'd very much like to run physical competitions again. It's what we enjoy, but whilst we won't be running one for this year, we'd really like to make this year sort of as good as we possibly can and get it up to the same caliber of robots, of production value, of excitement, of stress, of tears of joy and pain and everything that normally come with a student robotics competition. So, in short, yes, we'd like to, but we'll have to see what next year looks like.
We are taking advantage in the meantime of the things that we can do with a virtual competition that we can't do with the normal physical competition, though, as well. So with a physical competition, what you probably don't see is the months of preparation that go into any physical event we have to run. And the massive amount of work it takes to set up a venue. It's about 2 days to set up the arena and everything before you get there. So it was completely unfeasible to do 5 leagues for a physical competition. It would be very expensive to do even to the transport for that. But when it's all virtual, it means that we can do that. We can spread out the competition through multiple months. We can do this modular format. So we'd love to go. We'd love to go back to the physical format. We're really looking forward to it. And it's great to be able to teach you a bit of electronics and hardware as well when we can. But in the meantime, this is the best that we can do, and I think we're going to have it's going to be pretty good, and we're taking full advantage of the flexibility it gives us this year as well.
So that appears to be it for the questions at the moment. So we're going to stop taking questions on the live stream, at least. If you have any questions either throughout today or the rest of the competition year, you can of course let us know either through Discord or by emailing us teams@studentrobotics.org. Your team leaders have all these contact details. So, not that one. That one. What does the rest of today look like? Now, we've bounced a little bit around. We've used the term microgames, but what are the microgames? Basically, they're like games, but micro. It basically comes down to it's a interactive tutorial-y way of getting used to how the kit works, what APIs are available to you, how mechanics in the simulator work, and sort of how to use it. Now, we've tried to go through everything that's possible in the microgames. However, just because we've gone through everything and we've told you about it does not mean you have to use it. You can use any sensors you want. You could use just radar, just ultrasound, and things like that. It's entirely up to you. So you can find a link to the microgames on our docs, I think. Or if not, they will be there very shortly. Thank you for sticking around and watching our Kickstart presentation. As always, if you have any questions, please let us know, and we look forward to speaking to you in the Discord or at the first league session. So, it's goodbye from me.
And additionally, a goodbye from me.